My mother baked lemon cake that morning. The sweet and sour aroma filled our kitchen. Diane never cooked, not even on holidays, but on my 18th birthday she did. I should have known something was off then, my stomach tightening with each passing hour. They waited until the afternoon. I had just finished getting dressed when Warren called me downstairs, his voice echoing through our pristine home. He wouldn't even look at me as I entered the room. Diane was staring down at her lap, her lips pressed into a thin line, manicured fingers fidgeting with her napkin. Something had happened, I felt it churning in my gut, a cold weight settling inside me. "Sit down, Avery," Warren said. His voice carried that same coldness he used whenever I made the smallest mistake as a child. I sat, confusion washing over me as I struggled to maintain my composure. I'd learned years ago not to show emotion around them, it only made things worse, their disapproval cutting deeper. Then they dropped it, the truth landing like a stone between us. "You were adopted," Diane said bluntly. No emotion, no tears, just cold facts delivered like a business transaction. "We took you in when you were 2, Warren added, his words clinical and detached. "Your birth mother couldn't care for you, Catherine Lawson was declared unfit. We did what we could with what we were given." I sat frozen, feeling the blood drain from my face. "We think it's time," Diane continued, "that you find your own way now. You're old enough to be independent," Warren stated, as if reading from a script. Then Warren reached down beside his chair and slid a designer backpack across the polished floor. "There's some money in there and a few essentials. We've arranged for you to stay at a motel until you find employment." They were kicking me out on my birthday, discarding me like I'd reached my expiration date. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I stood up slowly and nodded, keeping my face carefully blank. "Thank you," I said with a small smile, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. They didn't notice how my fingers gripped the strap of the bag, knuckles turning white. They didn't notice the flicker of something sharper in my eyes, a determination taking root. Because what they didn't know, what they couldn't possibly have guessed, was that 3 weeks earlier I had discovered the hidden file. It was buried in Warren's password-protected laptop that I'd managed to access while he was away on business. An email thread addressed to someone named Catherine Lawson, with attachments containing my birth certificate with her name listed as mother. No father listed. I'd searched for her online obsessively. I'd even used public records databases and archived news sites, and what I found shocked me so deeply I hadn't spoken of it to anyone. Not yet. My real mother hadn't been unfit. She was silenced. And now, as I walked out the front door of the house where I had lived my whole life, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt a surge of purpose flowing through me, because I wasn't leaving in shame. I was leaving with a plan. The motel smelled like cheap disinfectant and stale air, the kind of place people ended up when they ran out of options. I kept my back to the wall that first night, my heart pounding as I clutched my bag like it contained treasures. Truth was, it only had 2 changes of designer clothes Warren had deemed appropriate, a few crisp bills that wouldn't last the week, and that downloaded file. The encrypted file was everything. The next morning I slipped out before sunrise, the cold air stinging my cheeks like tiny needles. I walked 20 minutes to the 24-hour internet cafe, my only refuge in this unfamiliar part of town. It was quiet there, anonymous, and they had unrestricted Wi-Fi access. I sat on a seat in the back, plugged in my flash drive containing the files I'd secretly backed up, and kept reading the same digital news article over and over, my eyes burning from the screen's glow. Renowned neuropsychiatrist Catherine Lawson committed after failed whistleblower attempt. The photo beside the headline showed a young woman with intelligent eyes and determined features being escorted away by security personnel. Her expression wasn't fearful, it was defiant, chin raised despite everything. The article said she had accused a prominent doctor, Dr. Victor Blackwell, of unauthorized experimentation and ethics violations on female patients at his exclusive treatment center. The doctor denied everything, of course, his reputation remaining untarnished. A month later, Catherine was declared mentally unstable and committed to Evergreen Wellness Institute for treatment and observation. No charges filed against the doctor. No investigation. Just silence that spread like a disease. Except that same doctor later founded the Blackwell Foundation, which my adoptive father supported with substantial donations. I'd seen Warren's name on their annual reports, dismissing it as his typical networking and charity appearances. Now the connections were forming, digital threads weaving a disturbing pattern. I downloaded the article and added it to my encrypted folder. The cafe attendant glanced at me suspiciously, probably noticing how my fingers trembled across the keyboard. Back at the motel, I opened my laptop and documented everything I knew. Catherine was a brilliant neuropsychiatrist specializing in trauma treatment. She was institutionalized after attempting to expose a powerful, connected man. She gave birth to me during her confinement. Somehow I ended up adopted by Warren Mitchell, the Blackwell Foundation's legal counsel. My stomach twisted with certainty. This wasn't coincidence. This was conspiracy. That night I couldn't sleep. The shadows dancing across the motel ceiling felt too alive, too watchful. I kept thinking about Catherine. My mind raced with burning questions that stole my breath. Did she know I existed out here? Was she even still alive after all these years? I needed answers that clawed at me from the inside. I needed to see her, hear her voice, touch her hand if I could. But first I had to locate Harbor Heights Behavioral Center, if such a place still existed beyond archived records. The next morning I began my digital hunt, searching patient transfer databases, health department records, and sending carefully worded emails to anyone who might know where former Evergreen patients were relocated after the facility closed. Most responses were dead ends or automated replies, but one administrator, her email signature showing 30 years in the system, paused in our chat exchange when I mentioned Evergreen. She promised to look into it securely. 3 hours later, my phone pinged with an encrypted message. There's a specialized treatment facility in Lakewood, about 2 hours north. Several Evergreen patients were transferred there discreetly around 2005. No digital records, but I have confirmation some original patients remain under continuing care. I didn't question her sources. I just saved the location, Harbor Heights Behavioral Center. I had a destination burning in my mind, but my situation remained desperate: no transportation, dwindling funds, and no idea what barriers I would face. I hadn't eaten properly in days, not from lack of hunger, but from calculating every dollar. The money Warren and Diane had generously provided had nearly vanished on motel fees and research costs. Every cent became precious, even the forgotten coins I spotted in parking lot corners. I sat on a bench outside the internet cafe, my laptop balanced on my knees, working through my limited options. Bus fare to Lakewood wasn't expensive, but in my current financial state, it might as well have been first-class airfare. I didn't want to steal and want to ask for help. But the need for answers burned stronger than my pride. The coffee shop across the street had a "baristas needed" sign in their window. My heart raced as I crossed the street, determination pushing me forward. I asked for the manager, explained I could work any shift, learn quickly, do whatever was needed. She studied my face, noticed the determination behind my exhaustion, then nodded. Morning shift starts at 5:30 a.m., don't be late. I worked 4 days straight, smiling through exhaustion, memorizing orders, moving with increasing efficiency. My feet throbbed, my fingers cramped from operating the espresso machine, but on the 5th morning I transferred $142 in wages and tips to my new prepaid card. It was enough. The bus to Lakewood departed at 9:15 a.m. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just walked to the station, my encrypted files safely backed up to 3 different cloud accounts, and stepped aboard. The ride was quiet, passing through towns that seemed frozen in time, their streets still dotted with melting snow though it was already mid-April. Harbor Heights Behavioral Center stood at the top of a winding driveway, partially obscured by tall evergreens. The sign was modern but subdued, institutional blue against white stone. It looked more like a private rehabilitation retreat than a psychiatric facility. The receptionist barely glanced up when I entered the pristine lobby. She had a tablet, sleek glasses perched on her nose, and a professionally detached voice. "I'm here to visit a patient," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Name?" she asked, fingers hovering over her screen. "Catherine Lawson," I replied. She looked up sharply. "Relation?" I paused, my mouth suddenly dry. "I'm her daughter." She studied my face with new interest, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Dr. Lawson doesn't receive visitors." "I know," I said, holding her gaze. That's why I needed to come in person. She tapped her security badge against her tablet, spoke quietly into her headset, then nodded curtly. Down the corridor, through the security doors, room 214. The attendant will escort you. 20 minutes maximum. The door opened silently, revealing a sunlit room, and there she was, thin, elegant despite her circumstances, hair streaked with premature silver, sitting near a window with her hands resting carefully on a book. She didn't turn when I entered. "Catherine," I said, my voice catching in my throat. She looked up slowly, deliberately. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, something electric passed between us. Recognition? Hope? Pain? All of them at once. She didn't speak, but her gaze held mine with intensity. I moved closer, feeling my pulse pounding in my ears. "My name is Avery Mitchell. You had a daughter 18 years ago. They told me you were unstable. They said you were dangerous. But I found your research papers. I know what you were trying to expose. I know what they did to silence you." She exhaled softly, and something in her composed demeanor shifted. Her fingers tightened around the book. "They still monitor everything," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "They think the medications have dulled my awareness, but I remember everything." I felt a chill run through me. She remembered, but who exactly was watching? Catherine's eyes flicked toward the air vent, then to the smoke detector in the corner. I couldn't see any obvious cameras, but she seemed to know precisely where surveillance might be hidden. Her voice was a controlled breath when she continued. "They recorded our treatment sessions, claiming research protocols. But the real purpose was behavioral profiling and control techniques. I accessed files I wasn't authorized to see. I documented everything." She paused, gripping her wrist with calculated pressure, like someone trained to manage their reactions. "Catherine," I began, moving closer. "Who's behind this? Is it the Blackwell Foundation? My father?" She flinched visibly, the word triggering something deep. She shook her head slowly, a gesture of warning rather than denial. "Warren Mitchell," she whispered, eyes focusing on a point beyond me. "He wasn't on any approved adoption list. He manipulated the system, had your records classified. I tried to fight it through proper channels, but by then they had already labeled me as unstable, a threat to institutional security." My legs felt suddenly unsteady. I sank into the chair beside her, fighting to keep my voice from trembling. What were they really doing at Evergreen? What was Blackwell doing to those women? She pressed her lips together until they paled. Neural reprogramming. Advanced memory manipulation. Compliance conditioning. It began as legitimate PTSD research with military funding, but evolved into something darker. They tested experimental compounds, psychological breaking points on vulnerable women who wouldn't be missed. Some were addiction patients, others were wives of powerful men who had become inconvenient, and you? I asked, leaning forward. I was documenting everything meticulously. I was idealistic, believed in scientific ethics. I submitted comprehensive evidence to the Medical Ethics Board. 5 days later my credentials were suspended. In 2 weeks, I was forcibly committed. Then transferred here. Her voice cracked slightly, eyes glistening with tears she'd clearly learned to suppress. "I begged to know about you when they told me you'd been placed for adoption. They wouldn't tell me anything. They moved me here, classified me as high risk. I never stopped searching for you." I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone, opening the secure folder with her medical license photo. "You don't have to search anymore." She touched the screen like it might shatter under her fingers. For a long moment, silence hung between us. "Then, you're in danger being here. If they discover you've connected with me?" "I don't care," I interrupted, my voice stronger than before. "You're not mentally ill. You never were. And I'm going to expose what they did." Catherine's hand suddenly gripped mine with surprising strength. "Trust no one with authority or institutional access. Not in this system." Suddenly the electronic lock beeped in the hallway. Catherine's entire demeanor transformed instantly. A shadow moved past the frosted glass. She straightened, her expression becoming vacant, her posture institutional perfect. The attendant opened the door with a practiced smile. I'm sorry, but the visiting period has ended. Catherine didn't acknowledge me again, just returned to her book and gazed out the window. I stood, my heart pounding against my ribs. As I passed the attendant, she leaned in slightly and whispered, "You're not the first to come asking questions about Dr. Lawson." But that journalism student never returned for her follow-up interview. The door locked automatically behind me before I could ask who she meant. The cold spring air hit me like a physical blow the moment I stepped out of Harbor Heights. My breath formed small clouds and my fingers trembled, not just from the chill but from the weight of everything I'd just discovered. My mother wasn't a patient. She was a political prisoner. I didn't immediately head for the bus station. I found a stone bench under a budding maple tree and sat there, staring up at the modern facade of the center on the hill. My mind was racing, thoughts colliding like storm waves. Another person had come looking before me. A journalism student had tried to uncover the truth, and she had vanished. The attendant's words weren't explicitly threatening, but the warning was unmistakable. Back in Lakewood, I checked into a budget motel with generic art and spotty Wi-Fi. I could not sleep. I spent the entire night diving through secure forums, archived medical records, even whistleblower sites, searching for anything connecting Harbor Heights, Evergreen Institute, or patients who had mysteriously disappeared. Nothing substantial. Digital footprints erased with surgical precision. I shifted my focus to the Blackwell Foundation. That name had haunted me since discovering Warren's signature on their board documents. Their website was sophisticated and polished, showcasing innovative therapies, wellness programs, and carefully crafted mission statements about transformative healing for trauma survivors. A beautiful lie masking something monstrous. I began methodically accessing public financial records, tax filings, board minutes, any digital breadcrumb they might have overlooked. Then I found it, buried in a corporate acquisition filing, Warren Mitchell's signature authorizing the transfer of proprietary therapeutic research assets during the period Evergreen Institute was quietly shuttered. My stomach twisted with sickening clarity. He was never merely a donor or supporter. He was integral to their operation. A board executive. Part of the inner sanctum. He helped Blackwell conceal evidence. He likely facilitated Catherine's commitment. And then he adopted me. I was never a child they wanted. I was a living trophy of their success, evidence that their system worked perfectly. They could silence a whistleblower and raise her child as their own without consequence. Rage burned through me like wildfire, but beneath it flowed an icy current of fear. They possessed resources, connections, influence. They had made others disappear without leaving traces. That attendant at Harbor Heights wasn't being kind. She was warning me to disappear before they noticed me. But running wasn't an option. I needed irrefutable evidence. I searched employee databases for Harbor Heights staff and identified a name, Olivia Ramirez, matching the ID badge I'd glimpsed. With determined effort, I found her LinkedIn profile, but I noticed she'd worked at both Evergreen and Harbor Heights. The crucial clue was in a professional recommendation. Olivia's dedication to patient advocacy even in challenging institutional environments makes her exceptional. I sent her an encrypted message. I expected silence, but explained who I was, my meeting with Catherine, and my determination to expose the truth. 2 hours passed in anxious waiting. Then at 2:14 a.m., my secure messaging app pinged. Parking lot. East entrance. 20 minutes. Olivia sat in her car, engine running, eyes constantly checking mirrors. I shouldn't be doing this, she said, passing me a tablet. But what they did to your mother was criminal. I swiped through Catherine's digital file. Pages of clinical evaluations all tagged with security classifications, cognitive resistance, reality distortion, paranoid ideation. The language was technical, dehumanizing. It's all fabricated, Olivia said, her voice tight with anger. She wasn't mentally ill. She was brilliant and ethical. The day before her commitment, she submitted evidence to 3 regulatory bodies. 12 hours later, she was deemed psychologically unstable. I scrolled to a scanned report, meticulous notes and data tables, signed K. Lawson, MD, PhD. It detailed unauthorized neuropharmacological trials on patients without informed consent under Blackwell's direction. Why hasn't anyone exposed this? I asked, my voice shaking. Olivia's eyes darkened. The Foundation's influence extends everywhere: hospital boards, research grants, political donations. Anyone who challenges them through official channels simply disappears from the conversation. I'm not going through official channels, I said, my determination hardening. I'm going to expose them where they can't control the narrative. Olivia hesitated, then handed me an encrypted drive. Internal communications, patient treatment logs, Catherine's original research notes. If you're serious about this fight, you'll need these. I've never been more serious about anything. Then be careful and don't return here. They monitor everything. As I slipped away through a service exit, something fundamental had changed inside me. I wasn't just searching for my identity anymore. I had become their nightmare. And surprisingly, I felt no fear. Not yet. I didn't return to my motel. I avoided anywhere connected to my name. Instead, I spent the night in a corner of a 24-hour truck stop diner 30 miles away, nursing a coffee I could barely afford, staring at the encrypted drive in my palm. I had only my smartphone, not secure enough. I couldn't risk connecting the drive to anything traceable. By afternoon, I found a cash-only computer shop and bought a refurbished laptop. I went to a public library in a different county, sat hidden behind tall bookshelves, and inserted the drive. The encryption cleared, revealing folders: patient assessment, experimental protocols, Foundation directives, Dr. VB personal, patient transfers, K. Lawson. My mouth went dry. I opened the patient files first. Pages of clinical notes referencing neural recalibration, memory suppression, compliance therapy. Many entries ended with a subject relocated following treatment resistance. No names, only numbers. The Foundation directives contained Warren Mitchell's signature. Subject: KL presents reputation concerns. Maintain containment protocol. Media inquiry 2010 identified and neutralized. Bennett investigation advancing. Implement surveillance measures. It was Zoe's surname. They were tracking her research. Watching her. They let her get close, then made her disappear. My hands trembled opening the Dr. VB personal folder. Dozens of video recordings. The labels are date only. I played the one from 2008. A dimly lit room. A woman strapped to a chair. Slurred speech. A man off camera asking calculated questions. Do you believe our team wants to harm you, Catherine? His voice is smooth and controlled. No, she mumbled. You're helping me, forget the delusions. I slammed the laptop shut. This wasn't therapy. This was psychological reprogramming. I needed to act quickly. I contacted every independent investigative source I could find through secure channels. Most didn't respond, but one name stood out: Meredith Prescott, investigative journalist forced out of mainstream media for investigating experimental treatments. I sent her an encrypted message: I have evidence of illegal experimentation on women. I have documentation, videos, and I believe Zoe Bennett contacted you before disappearing. Need help? I expected days of waiting, but she replied in under an hour. Your location? Secure channel only. I've been building this case for almost 20 years. Meredith Prescott lived in a remote cabin buried in dense woods, far from prying eyes and digital surveillance. Her instructions were clear and direct. No phones. No traceable vehicles. Leave all electronics behind. I followed every protocol precisely. She waited on the porch when I arrived, mid-50s, intense eyes, face weathered by determination. Inside, she moved with purpose. No pleasantries, just locked the door, activated a secure laptop, and said, "Show me." I handed over the drive. She remained expressionless while examining the files, only her fingers tightening when she saw Zoe Bennett's name. She reached out to me, Meredith said quietly. Said she had evidence, felt she was being watched. We arranged to meet. She disappeared before we could. She studied me intently. You're challenging powerful people who believe they're untouchable. I know, I replied firmly. But I won't stop now. She verified a document and nodded. These are genuine. The formatting, terminology, authentic foundation documents. She watched the videos in complete silence. Focused. Jaw tight. When this goes public, they'll burn, she said finally. But we must be strategic. One wrong move and you vanish like Zoe, or end up like Catherine, alive but forgotten. She leaned closer. We make this too big to contain. We distribute to trusted allies, attorneys, journalists, security experts. When we release everywhere at once. I nodded, feeling the weight of our mission. This was for Catherine, for Zoe, and for my stolen life. Meredith worked methodically. Within a day, she had securely copied the evidence to 7 trusted contacts, prosecutors, ethics attorneys, journalists, and whistleblower platforms. Each received unique decryption keys through separate channels. This is how you defeat them, she explained. Remove their control over information. She crafted a comprehensive report connecting all evidence points. She worked through the night while I tried unsuccessfully to rest. The next morning, I received a call from Warren Mitchell. His voice was controlled, calculating. Avery, I know what you've found. We need to talk. You owe me that. I stared at the phone, feeling nothing but disgust. I owed him nothing. Meredith looked up sharply and said, "Don't go." But I had to. I needed to face him one last time. We met in a crowded public space, a modern downtown plaza buzzing with activity. Security cameras. Witnesses everywhere. I maintained a careful distance. Warren wore his expensive tailored suit and practiced smile, as if this were a normal business meeting. You've become quite resourceful, he said, eyes calculating my every move. Don't, I cut him off sharply. Don't pretend you ever cared about me as a person. His composed expression faltered briefly. You think this situation is black and white? You think I had a choice? No, I replied, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I think you wanted power and control. He paused, then offered a slight nod of acknowledgement. The information you've obtained is dangerous. Not just for me. For you and Catherine. If this goes public, lives will be destroyed. I know, I said, meeting his gaze without flinching. People's lives have already been destroyed. He moved closer, lowering his voice. This doesn't have to end in disaster. You still have time to reconsider. I stood my ground. Then I said quietly, you're too late. It's already been distributed. He froze completely. His facade cracked. The practiced calm dissolved, revealing the cold calculation beneath. This will ruin you too, he warned. No, I whispered with absolute certainty. It liberates me. I turned and walked away. I didn't look back once. The story broke across media platforms 3 days later. It began with a podcast featuring disturbing audio from my recovered files. Then came news articles, leaked documents, falsified medical records, whistleblower statements, and a detailed report on Zoe Bennett naming specific perpetrators. Finally, the damning video, Catherine in that clinical room, drugged, vacant-eyed. People watched in horror. People demanded accountability. Within a week, the Blackwell Foundation dominated headlines. In 2 weeks, federal authorities launched a formal investigation. Search warrants were executed. Warren Mitchell's name appeared alongside Victor Blackwell in a lawsuit filed by former patients and families. I hadn't expected such widespread outrage, but the public response was overwhelming. Meredith kept her hidden while media interest intensified. But my thoughts remained fixed on Harbor Heights. I need to get her out, she told Meredith one morning. Before they decide she's too dangerous to keep alive. Meredith made urgent calls. By evening they were driving north. Harbor Heights offered little resistance after the exposé. Staff were fearful, uncertain. Many had already left. Olivia met them with prepared discharge papers. They've increased her medication, but she's still coherent. Move quickly. I found Catherine still by the window. Mom, I whispered, kneeling beside her. We're leaving now. Catherine's eyes were unfocused, but her hand moved deliberately. She touched my face. You found me. I always would, I said, tears forming. No matter what they did. They walked out together. No alarms, no resistance. Just evening light and freedom. The following months were intense: legal protection, medical treatment, trauma therapy, Catherine's gradual return to a world that had forgotten her. The legal proceedings continued. Delayed but advancing. Warren Mitchell never contacted us again. He was indicted 4 months later. And Zoe? Meredith persisted in her search. 7 months after the expose, they located a woman living under an alias in a coastal town. The person was weak but alive. She was Zoe Bennett, and I flew to meet her. We spoke for hours about the future, not dwelling on what was taken, but focusing on what we would build together.